What's going on, rock stars? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw and Unscripted Show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, your no excuses coach. And you are at your place where we help you eliminate tolerations, excuses in favor of having kick-ass, unstoppable rock star confidence. Thank you guys for joining us, whether you're live or on the replay, whether you're on the video cast or the podcast. We appreciate and love you guys wherever you're tuning in from. And God be told, we are in 27 different countries right now. I think it's 28, 27. I did a count a couple of days ago and I forgot which exactly it was, but thank you guys for tuning in from all over the world. It does my heart proud because I talk about the fact that humanity, this world, we are more the same than we are different. And there is my goal of having a one world, one love, irrespective of all the divisiveness that's going on. So this show is a representation of that. And thank you guys for sharing it out and making it a top 10% podcast around the world. Globally, it's one of my biggest things I love to brag about. I've been doing the show now for 5 years. And truth be told, I did a live radio show before that for 3 years. And I've done another podcast called The Unfiltered Experience. I love broadcasting, but more importantly, what I love to do is have you tune in and listen to my voice or watch me on the video cast and think about what it is that I'm saying, and then think about what it is and how it is that you can apply it in your life. That's what this show is all about. We are on episode 277, I believe. Yes, this is episode number 277. So you think about it, there's 276 episodes out there at about an hour in length. So that's 277 hours. And if you're truly, truly interested in living a kick-ass, unstoppable rock star life, if you're truly interested in overcoming your limiting beliefs and your excuses and the things that you put up with your entire life, if you're really, truly interested in achieving the things that you have only dreamed about, here's what I encourage you to do. If you're new to the show, or if you're relatively new to the show, go back and pick out a couple of episodes a week. Make it your University of Kick-Ass, and go back there and listen to at least one of the tour shows every single week and take 3 action items from each show. Because I can promise you, between myself and my guest, there's at least 3 action items that you will go, oh, I should do that. Or maybe I should do that again. And you think about that. You think about what we talk about here, the compound interest for taking imperfect action every single day. Imperfect action every single day. You're accomplishing 3 things a week. Where will your life be in 26 weeks? 26 times 3. I don't know exactly what that is, but I know that's over 100. Can you imagine getting 100 things done? Math is my worst subject. Can you imagine getting over 100 tasks done towards the goals of your life, towards becoming a better person in your relationships, in your professional life? Can you imagine just how much different your life could be? I can promise you that it's true, because I've had people do it. I've had people reach out to me and say, Chris, you talk about a lot of books, and I will give them 5 books. And I'm like, take these 5 books and take 3 things from each book and apply them over the next 3 months. Can you do that? Yes or no? Absolutely, Chris. And inevitably, they will call me before they're even done with the books. And they'll say, Chris, oh my God, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Oh my God, that has changed my business life. Oh my God, The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, whatever it might be that I recommend for you, whatever it is that you're doing, and you go apply that, your life will incrementally change. You will start taking better care of your health, in which case you'll start waking up and feeling better. And when you start to feel better, you start to do better. And when you start to do better, you stop tolerating the bullshit in your life, and it all feeds upon itself. So that ultimately in 3, 6 months, 12 months, you look back and you're like, wow. And here's what I hear all the time. I wish I would have done it sooner. So some of you out there might be playing the someday game. Someday when the kids are done, maybe someday when I have more time, whatever it is, then I will pursue my dreams. And I can tell you this, and I want you to listen to this very carefully. Life is going by like that. Think about how fast the last 3 years have gone. I just realized that COVID was 4 years ago. March of 2020, that was 4 years ago. I think about my son, he's 8 years old. And I think in another 8 years, he's going to be 16 years old. How fast did the last 8 years go? Ladies and gentlemen, life is to be lived today. Life is to be lived today. It's not to be lived someday. So I encourage you. And in this particular episode that we have a special guest, listen to what my guest is saying and take notes. Take physical notes, take them on your phone, whatever it might be, and then set that plan of action in motion next week to start attacking those goals, and your life will incrementally change. So there's my little public service announcement. And now for our guest. I had the opportunity to be a part of a panel with my guest many months ago. Again, how fast time flies. And I was really inspired by her story. I was really inspired by the advice and the tips that she gave. And I said, you need to be on the Raw and Unscripted show. because I know you will provide value for those who are listening and participating in their lives, because we all have a unique story. We all have a unique journey. And I can come on here all the time and tell you my story and what I recommend. But the reason why I bring guests on here is for them to share their particular background, because as you do, you may find similarities. Oh my God, I feel the same way as she does. I've been in that same situation, and oh my God, she's accomplished the things that I want to accomplish. And here's the action plan by which you can do it. And I'm very encouraged because she's a fellow coach. She's a fellow life coach. And this conversation is going to be very exciting. We are recording this particular episode. Normally we do it live. So unfortunately you can't ask us live questions as we're doing it. But if you want, we're going to be giving you Terry's email towards the end. And if you're watching this on a video cast, feel free to still put the comments in there. I know some of you guys watch it tomorrow morning because it's late on the East Coast, and that's why we're recording it. Put the comments in there anyway. And if it's a question for myself or a question for Terry, we'll make sure you guys get the answer for it. So that's the value that we provide in this. As you're going through this, ask us those questions, because we're here to provide service and value. And in exchange for that, we ask you that you share the show out. Share it out and let people know what it is that you learned and gained from it. And without any further ado, I'd please welcome Terry Lambertson to the Raw and Unscripted show. Terry, it's such a pleasure to have you on.
Oh, Christopher, thank you so much for allowing me some time on your amazing platform.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
No, it's long overdue. I think we scheduled this back in January or February, something like that.
Yes.
I've been booking shows out 6 months to 7 months in advance. I'm actually booked out for the rest of the year. As of the recording of the show, it is August 20th, 2024. And I am booked out. I think the first episode of 2025 is already booked out, but I'm going to be changing the format a little bit. But at any rate, Terry, welcome to the show. And my first question to you is, what do you want people to walk away knowing most tonight? When you think about the overarching conversation that we're about to have, they're done with the show. They're like, oh my God, I'm so inspired. And now I want to do this, or now I believe I can do this. What is that for somebody?
For me, it all centers on, number one, hope, and faith is the underpinning for that hope. It doesn't matter what you've been through. I mean, I can tell you that over the course of my lifetime, I've been through just about every experience, traumatic and otherwise, that a woman can go through. Okay. I was raised in a family where I wasn't celebrated. I was in a terribly violent marriage for 7 years. I was homeless following being assaulted by one of my patients when I worked in a mental health facility. Between 2020 and 2024, I lost my mom, my aunt, my 19-year-old granddaughter, and a mentor to me for 40 years, all in a 5-month period of time. And so if my journey says anything, it says that it's just never over until you take your last. And it's never too late for it to be stupendous. 22 years ago, I was homeless with a 17-year-old and her infant, my daughter and infant granddaughter, and we lived in a shelter for 7 months. And 22 years later, I've been married to the love of my life for 19 years. We had a retirement plan. We executed on it. 2 years ago, we built this house. We went into retirement with a brand new house, no house payment, no car payments. And we wake up every day joyous because it's actually happened. It's actually here. And we get to live this blessed life.
Wow, I am blown away. We have so many things in common, but I know people are out there going, well, it must be nice to be you. Right. And they've listened to me for quite some time, and they sit there and I get it all the time. Like, well, it must be nice to be you, Chris. And they just don't know the work and the focus and the things that we've had to change in our life. Talk to us about that. How can you find hope and joy again, given all the unbelievable circumstances you've been through? What is it for somebody who's going right now? They're listening to this, they're in financial hardship. They're stressed out over the economy. They're stressed out over the political situation, everything about that. What are some things that they can do to start turning that mindset around from being a victim to being a victor?
It's so important that we find our center. What what does it for us? Now, for me, it's my hope and faith in Jesus Christ. God has never lost a battle.
So
Okay.
that's your center, just to make sure for everybody listening. So the center is your faith and your belief in God.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely. Good. God has never waged a war that he didn't win. And you can go all the way back to biblical times to this day, and there is always the underdog story. There is always you don't even have to look far, if this is one of the reasons why community is so important, because then you're constantly hearing these things. You're constantly having people say, this is where I am and how do I get to the next level? So it's so important to have people who are just a little further down that journey than you are, because iron sharpens iron, and you become immersed in seeing these. Some of these miracles are really super tiny, and some of them are really super big. And sometimes it's not until you're out of the valley that you can look back and see how many small little things happened that eventually got you to that big happily ever after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about the what I was talking about before, the stepping stones of taking that imperfect action every single day. While you were talking, I was trying to post an amazing video, but for some reason, since we're recording, it's not allowing me to post it. So I'll post it in the live broadcast. But it's called The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. Have you ever heard of it?
Yes.
So what you're describing exactly is the Joseph Campbell story, and dollar for dollar, I think it's an hour and 23 minutes. It's free. It's on YouTube. I'll post it on the live portion of this conversation. When I watch that, and I've seen it now probably 4 or 5 times, usually if it's been more than 6 months to a year and I have somebody watch it, I watch it again too, because every single time I'm inspired by the fact that life is happening for us and not to us. And the biggest thing I've learned in my life, Terry, one of the biggest things is that right now, when we think about everything that we've been through and everything that we're going through, it is all preparing us for what's next. It's all the school of life, that all of it is preparing us for what's next. I just helped somebody out yesterday who is in really, really bad shape. And I said, what if you had the perspective that what you're going through right now, if you can ask God, source, universe, whatever it is you believe in, what am I supposed to be learning right now? What am I supposed to be learning from right now? Because when we look back on our life, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, when do we learn and grow the most? When things are easy or when things are challenging?
It's when I never have learned an easy lesson my entire life. Okay. If I'm not on my knees and tears aren't rolling and there aren't snot bubbles coming out of my nose, I don't know. I'm not going to get it. Mm-hmm. I have to come to a place of complete and utter surrender. I can't, he can, I have to let him do that. And now my life has shifted to the place where I just live in that surrendered mindset, which is there are no mistakes, accidents, or coincidences in God's universe. Everything that happens for a reason. So, okay, God, whatever you got for me today, happy, sad, whatever, I'm here for it.
I love that. Your strength is so inspiring, because so oftentimes we run away from it. We go to our short-term gratifications. We want to numb our mind. We want to numb ourselves to the experience. Whereas you're saying, hey, listen, I got to face this. It's not going to run. It's not going to go away. So when you think about your journey, and I can imagine there's got to be some other horrific experiences that you've talked about, but I'm curious to know, what is your place in life with forgiveness? Because so oftentimes, as part of the people that have done us wrong, if we hang on to that anger and that frustration and that resentment, we carry it around like a bag of like, oh, look at me, I'm a victim because I was beat up by my mom and I was all these different things, which we all have those stories. How do you recommend somebody who might be hanging on to some of those past stories and those beliefs to find forgiveness and empathy for the people that have wronged them in their life?
Look, we can't change people. We can only change ourselves. And, through my life of living in this family where mom and I were so close, but we were both the black sheep. So we both had kind of the same experience. And when she passed away, my excommunication was complete. But the thing of it is that it's such a blessing. It's such a blessing. I don't have to go to things and fake it and be something I'm just not, just so they all leave me alone. You know, sometimes God puts people in your life just to show you who you don't want to be and how you do not want to behave. And for a lot of us, unfortunately, they're related by blood. And
Yeah.
the one thing you never want to do is you don't want to go away mad. You don't, because that's just going to fester and lead to problems later on. Okay. They just behaved exactly the way that they behave. And that's fine. I'm not
But that's not
angry.
right, Terry. They shouldn't have done that. They should know better. What do you say to that?
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Okay. I can't waste my life shoulding all over myself.
Right.
Okay. At the end of the day, God gave me this one life to live. I only get to go around once. Okay. And now that I look like this, and I'm 67 years old. And so I'm
never thought.
really super aware of the fact that I have less time ahead of me than I do behind me. How do I want to spend this? And legacy has become very, very important to me.
Yes.
Okay. When I leave, it's going to leave a void in their lives, but I want them to have the love and the faith and the experience that I brought into their life, because that's what's going to make it possible for them to survive all of the sadness and having to do all the business end of what happens when, the matriarch of the family goes out, and now I have a 20-month-old grandson that I take care of 2 or 3 days a week. He's just the absolute joy of my life.
Yeah.
He is the little brother of the granddaughter that we lost. So it's even more special because, like, I'm rocking him in the same rocking chair that my mother bought for his sister. And I go on Disney Plus and we watch Bear in the Big Blue House because that's what I watched with her. And so we get to have all these beautiful full circle moments that continually bring her in such positive, beautiful ways. But we wouldn't see that if we were too busy being sad.
Mm-hmm. It's true. So going a little bit deeper on that, can you talk about a story of somebody perhaps you've had to forgive and walk us through what that process looks like? Because I get what you're saying, and I have something to share on that as well. But I want you to go deeper on that and talk about maybe a specific instance, if you will, and what your process was for being able to let go of that anger and that resentment. Because so many people wear it as a badge of honor. Oh, Chris, I'm screwed up because this person, fucked me over or messed me over. Walk us through that and talk about the steps perhaps that you had to do for letting go.
We all have those feelings when somebody does that to us, and we need to feel them to heal them, but we can't stay there, friends, because your life is going to go by like this. And, it's at some point, it's no longer their fault. It's ours. Okay.
Right.
So I had this brother who never wanted a sister, and he never got over it, to the point where when the nurse left after I was born, he ran down the hall saying, no, you forgot to take her.
Wow.
and seriously, he never got over it. And so, and he was just really a bully to me my entire life, and really authoritarian. And my mom tried to work with it, and bless her heart, So I went through a process of forgiveness with him. And this is how it went. I took a journal and I actually wrote down everything he had ever done to me. And I mean, this didn't happen in an hour or two. Okay. I went back to it. It took a week or 10 days.
Wow.
And then I took that and I actually read each one aloud, but I said, I know God has already forgiven you for this, and now I forgive you for this, blah, blah, blah. Right? And when it was all said and done, I was sitting outside next to my pond, just out in nature. It was a really beautiful experience. And when it was all done, I went and I got my husband and we burnt it.
Yeah,
And
burning
then
rituals are amazing.
And then I took all the ashes and I put it in the pond and I sent it off into the sea of never again. Right? This had absolutely no effect on him whatsoever. But for me, it broke the shackles. So 6 months after my granddaughter died, and he adopted my adult older child.
Your brother did?
Yeah.
Your brother adopted your older child?
Yeah. As an adult.
Why is that not connecting? That seems...
As an adult, because the idea was to end my parenthood and any stature that I had in the family. Okay, well, you all cannot end my parentage because I have
thought
a
I've heard
scar
everything, but I never
Right.
heard that. Wow.
Right. But I have a scar to prove it. I'm going to be her mom until the day I die. I don't care if she has to talk to me in 15 years. I don't care if it's another 15 years because I'm on the other side of the country living my beautiful life. Thank you, Jesus. But when that happened, I spun for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then I said, seriously, Terry, how does this really affect your everyday life?
It's a great question.
And the answer, right? And the answer was, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Because you choose not to let it.
Yeah, right. You're still living in this beautiful house and loving on this baby, and you have this fabulous man who after 20 years is still absolutely crazy about you, even though you have evolved 5 times in 20 years and you're nowhere near the person that he married, but but he buckled up and flowed with every change. And that goes back to the fact that there's no accidents, because I met this man on the internet, and I met him on the internet after I put a man's bathrobe in my closet and I asked God to fill it.
Wow. There's some visualization. There's some law of attraction right there.
Because I couldn't choose. My picker's broken. Right. So I had to let somebody else chew and see. God knew the man that I was going to need in 2024 when all this happened, in 2022 when all this happened. And I don't know if he was that man when I met him in 2005, probably not. But by the time we got there,
wow,
there he is. There he is.
Thank you for sharing that, Terry. Thank you for sharing that. That is deep and that is very profound. And it is something that I have not heard before. And I've heard a lot of things. People have always felt very comfortable in sharing stuff that they never shared with anybody else. I take a lot of pride in that. And I love that because I know that can serve somebody who is out there. And for me, that process with my mother, who was physically abusive, mentally abusive, spiritually abusive, she did what she could, and I have to give her that credit. But I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. I never knew my biological dad. He was married and had a family of his own. He was cheating on his family with my mom. My biological sister, who is half my sister, she left when she was 16 and I was 9. She's like, I can't take this, and took off. So abandonment, rejection, lack of confidence. I was bullied at school. I was bullied on my street. I had zero self-confidence. And for me to be sitting here today through that process and that journey, I was successful on paper, but there was still that part of me that was pissed. Like when people would ask me on interviews, I've been interviewed thousands of times. They're like, don't you wish you had a normal childhood? And my instinctual action would be like, yeah, I wish I did, because I'd probably be even stronger and better than I am today. But it wasn't until I sat there, I was writing my book, my memoir, that's now coming out next year. That's a whole other story. I was writing the memoir and I was still frustrated as I was reliving all the situations that I went through with my mother. And there was a lot. It was a lot. I was very frustrated and very angry. Like, how did I put up with that? How did I continue to allow that? Da 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 da. And then I remember my mom, who was very brilliant. I mean, she is the stereotypical, she was book smart. She was so smart. She studied medical journals. She studied Gray's Anatomy, the actual physical book. That's what she would want for Christmas. Can you get me this Harvard, blah, 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 or whatever? I mean, clinical, to the point where doctors would say, where did you practice medicine? But people smart, she was stupid as the day is long. She screwed over all her relationships. She was fired from every job she ever had. And she would tell me periodically, she goes, I'm 4 years old. She goes, I'm 4 years old. I'm like, Mom, how can you even fucking say that? You're a brilliant person. You are not 4 years old. You are 40, whatever it was at the time. I remember when I blew up at her because I got sick and tired of it. I'm like, you're a grown ass woman. You need to stop blaming that you're 4 years old. So as I'm going through the book and I'm reliving these experiences, I'm like, why did she keep saying 4? And so I shut up. I took my victim hat off and I'm like, why does she keep saying 4? And then I recall I go through periods where I go deep on something, and I went deep on child psychology because I kept asking myself the question, where is it that we get screwed up? Where is it? For the most of my life, so I did this in my 40s. Most of my life, I thought it was when we become teenagers because we're not kids and we're becoming adults, and that our hormones, I thought that's where we get screwed up. But when I dove into child psychology, I found out we become the people we're going to become between the age of 0 when we're born and 5. And I was just like, sometimes people say 7. I give them that credit, but literally 0 to 5 is how we become the people we're going to become. And so when I took that into consideration, my mom saying 4, I'm like, okay, shut up, Chris. She says she's 4. What happened to her at 4? And because I tell people, you need to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so I'm like, what happened to her when she was 4? Oh, that's right. Her parents divorced. And this is back in the 40s. She was born in 1942. Right. She was born in 1942. So it would have been 1946, I guess. And my grandparents at the time, they were in their early 20s. And so I had to think, okay, what was life like back then? What was life like back then for my grandparents? And what was life like for my mom when they got divorced? And then my grandfather, who was very successful, went on to continue his egoic journey of getting into aerospace and having all that validation, didn't want to be a dad anymore. And then my mom had to go live with her mother, who was psychotic. My mother wrote me a list of the 7 different psychiatric disorders my grandmother had: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, multiple personality disorder, blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. She said, let me write these down for you in case you ever have a problem, because this is in your family, which it's another debatable story. But then I started thinking, oh my God, what would I have been like if I'd gone through her situations? Not mine, not looking at it from my point of view. Let me put it on from her point of view. And I'm like, no wonder she was screwed up. Oh my God, her mother made her do nothing but books. Like, she didn't get to play with friends. My mother was so smart. She graduated high school at 15, went to UC Santa Barbara at 16. And I thought my mother was full of shit. Until she died, I found a box of papers where she, at 15 years old, the dates on there, she wrote a synopsis or a thesis paper about Shakespeare, I think it was. And it's handwritten. No, it's typewritten. It's typewritten because there was another handwritten thing. It was brilliant. And I thought, oh my God, she never got to be a person. And then the 60s came around and free love came around and drugs came around, and she had to go discover who she was. And she went right off the deep end because nobody was there to say, hey, Meredith, here's how you navigate life. Right. All she knew was what she knew. And unfortunately, she didn't have the people in her life or the information in her life to help guide her and direct her. So she spent her entire life reacting to situations. And so when I was able to walk in her footsteps, the empathy and the compassion and the understanding still doesn't make it right that she would smack her own son and beat the shit out of me. But I understood that was her coping mechanism. That's what she grew up with, is being beaten, So in my eyes, it was up to me, and it is up to me to break that break the cycle of insanity. And so God is my witness. My son's 7 years old. I've never laid a hand on him. I've been able to get through to him with words. And so I had to go through those experiences with her to become the person I am, to break those generational curses, and for him to be able to go on and be even a better dad than I am. And so that's what I share with people who are listening and watching, and share with you, is that when I was able to do that, it took so much of the anger and the resentment away. There's still, truthfully, there's still aspects of it like, geez, mom, I could have ate before the cats. I could have ate before you had cigarettes, but it is what it is. And I'm a better person for having experienced all those adversities because I chose not to stay there. And I think that's what you were just saying as well. My next question for you, and I think just right, we can end right there and people would just be like, oh my God, my hair is blown back. When you think about your process in life for, you said, becoming different versions of yourself, what has been your biggest, I guess, switch that you've done for yourself personally that has allowed you to continue to keep your perspective open to new opportunities?
Wow. I've never even thought about it, because things just have, look, my whole life, I've wanted to do what I'm doing now. Okay. Life coach is not what I do. It's who I am. For most of my life, people have come to me to ask me about their situations because, I've always been a little older than my chronological years and a little wiser. And people have always come to me for that. And, if you don't have somebody like that in your life, God just really blessed me with a couple of mentors, a couple of women who were older than I was, who just really, this one woman, for 40 years, she was my English nanny in California who helped me raise my kids.
California.
And, she was the one where I was so broken and so battered going through this marriage. And she was the one who was able to help me see that I could move past that and I could do a better job with these kids on my own, and without her, I probably would have stayed until he killed me.
Wow.
So community, again, is just so super important. And there are people out there, who are willing to give you their time, and just say, hey, look, this is what happened to me. And you know what? I'm not super special. Okay. God doesn't love me any more than he loves you.
Right.
And that's why I love telling the story about the bathrobe, because I know I'm not the only woman who ever thought that she could never trust herself again to pick that guy out. And I'm not the only person that this could ever work for. And when I decided that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life alone, and I decided that I wanted God to choose, I was like, well, how could that possibly look, Terry? Seriously. And then I thought, maybe it was the Holy Spirit. I don't know. But I thought, okay, I'm going to go down to the thrift and I'm going to buy this robe and I'm going to put it in my closet. And, every once in a while I'd be picking through and it would be hanging there. And I'd say, okay, what up?
Yo, God, what's up?
Exactly. Is he here yet? And it took about 6 months. And I met this guy on the internet at platinumromance.com.
Nice.
Yeah. And, I could not believe from the first time I contacted him that he spoke the way that I spoke. He grew up in very much the same family dynamic that I did. He had pretty much the same dynamic with both of his children that I had with mine. And it was just amazing. And so when I finally came down and I met him for the first time, it was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is it.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing that with me. I did write out a couple of questions when I was looking back through your bio and thinking about this conversation, which sometimes I do and I don't. But the question I wrote here that came to me is that you work with people dealing with grief, addiction, and family dysfunction. What common struggles do you see and how do you help them overcome those issues?
Well, there's all of the aspects in there. There's post-traumatic going on. There is abandonment going on. There is all that. And first and foremost, it's getting them to let go. Let go.
Let go of
People
what?
talk of all of it, of all the icky feelings, of all the bad interactions, because you're either going to let go of them or you're going to drag them on, right? And people want to defend themselves, and they and they want to have the have the hard conversation. You've got to try at least once. But when they come back at you and you're the bad guy, okay, it's time to let them go. And people say to me, Terry, I need closure. Well, look, friend, I don't know what your closure was, because they wouldn't listen to you. Wasn't that the closure? Because they didn't honor what you had to say. Wasn't that the closure? Okay, they gave you the closure.
The door was slammed.
You just didn't get it. And so once that happens, in the book of Acts, Jesus told the disciples that after he died, they would go into places where the people would not hear them. And he told them, knock the dust off your sandals and keep on walking. Okay. Yeah. When the door is slammed and the cobwebs and the dust are raining down on you, okay, shake them off and walk on. Have to let it go, because if you don't let it go, it's going to be the millstone, right?
It's going to kill you.
It's one way or the other. One way or the other.
That sounds so easy, Terry. That sounds so easy to let it go. How do you dig deeper on that when somebody says, "Oh my God, that sounds," I wish I could just let it go, but I can't. What do you say in that situation?
I
can't let it go, Terry. I've tried.
What's stopping you is that mindset is everything. Okay. Mindset is 95% of what you do, and the other 5% is execution.
Yeah.
Okay. If your mind is set, if you can see, what is on the other side of this, why would you choose to stay where you're at?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, there are times, more than once, where I have said, God, I give up. And he always says, do you give up, Terry? Or do you give in?
What's the difference between giving up and giving in?
Giving up is hopeless, pointless. You're done. Giving in says, this is where it is, and this can be worked with. Right?
Possibilities. That's what I think you're saying right now is the power of possibility, the power of perhaps. I tell people to what you're saying right there is when they say, I can't, I'm like, Henry Ford had a brilliant quote that I had on everywhere for a long period of time when I was younger. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And so when people sit there and say, I can't, what you're saying is you won't. What do you mean? Like,
it's
like, have you done therapy? Yes or no? Well, yeah. And then how did it work? Oh, I didn't like the therapist. I'm like, how many therapists did you try? I didn't try any other ones. Okay. What would happen if you perhaps found a therapist that was specializing in the situation that you were going through and they would get you through that? Would you be open and willing to accept that? Ooh, then you get into that, how they become a victim and they choose their own state.
It's just like Yoda says, there is no try.
Oh, I hate the word try.
There is no try. There is only do. And
commit.
in the beginning, the do's are really, really small, are really, really small. But over time,
the compound interest.
Right. It's okay to feel that way. I'm not going to tell you your feelings aren't valid, but you know what? They're also transient. Right? They're subject to change. They aren't facts. Okay. So feel it, heal it, move forward.
I love it. Yeah. And that really is, it's about the script that we tell ourselves and the role we play and the things that we say and we do with ourselves. And we sit there and say, you know, I can't ever do that. Or I sit there and I tell people they'll sit there and say, well, I hope, or I wish, and no offense, they'll say, I pray. And I'm like, but what is the substantial action that you're taking to support that? Or are you just sitting there waiting, hoping, wishing that someday something's going to change, when in actuality, it's up to us. It's up to us to, you know, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
You look at change. Yeah.
Yes. So you're fully aware of that.
You know, even if all you're doing is praying about it, God expects you to do the footwork. And if you don't know what that footwork is, maybe you need somebody to help you figure out that end of it. Right. But, you know, not everything rains down on us like manna from heaven.
Yeah.
You know, I've known some really, really dark times. I have gone from being the woman at the mental hospital who has the keys around her neck and being the one who gets to say yay or nay, you go or you stay. And I've also been the one behind the door.
Right.
Right? Because I knew I was in a really bad space and I had to check myself in.
Good.
So, yeah. And I mean, when that door closed, it was a moment. It was a moment. I'm like, wait, I don't have my lanyard. This is it.
Right.
Right? You know, but look, rock bottom, make no mistake, is firm foundation.
Yeah.
Right. When the walls of Jericho came down, they used the rubble to build the wall. Right. If you're still sucking air, it ain't over.
It's so true. And I love what you're talking about here. I have another question I want to ask you before we wrap up. But I want to go back here for a second. I want to see if you're willing to do this, and you can be totally against it if you want. You mentioned before a strained relationship with your daughter. You haven't talked to her in 15 years. Would you be willing to share a little bit about that and how you process that grief and how you process that loss, given the fact that she's still in this world? Because I know personally, and I'll share a quick story for you. Like my sister left when she was 16. We have different dads. My mom was married to her father. They were normal, Then he found out how crazy she was and divorced her. But when my sister at 16 years old, I was 9, and she said, baby brother, I got to leave. I can't be around this person anymore. I can't be around mom anymore. She's driving me crazy, blah, blah, blah. And she left. And I'd never seen her again until the age of the internet. And sometime in I think I was 42 and she was 49. And I know it was 2005. So whatever that math was. And she found me via People Search. I remember People Search, and she reached out to me. We found out we live out here in Riverside in Southern California. We lived in Orange County, which is about an hour away. She lived 5 minutes over the freeway from me on the same main street. I said, oh, I live in Riverside. She goes, oh, I live in Riverside too. And I said, well, where are you at? She goes, I'm off La Sierra. And I said, I'm off La Sierra. Where are you at? She goes, I'm at the 91, I said, I'm at the 91 in Magnolia. She was literally probably all said and done a mile away from me. I remember we did the math and I drove there. I reunited with her for about a year. And then I found out she turned out exactly like my mom. It was horrifying, Terry. I am not making this up. It's in my book. She went into the same profession. She had the same excuses. I'm like this because it's all their fault, etc. She had a house full of cats. My mother was a crazy cat. Every single thing. She had a house full of books, every single thing. And then she asked me one day and she goes, baby brother, she goes, you were homeless with mom and you went through all these different things. How did you not turn out like her? And I looked her dead in the face and pardon my language. I said, because I fucking chose not to. I said, I read 100 autobiographies by famous people, and I learned about relationships. I learned about seeking first to understand. And I said, I chose not to be like her because I saw that was not the way. And I said, but how did you turn out exactly like her? She said, I am nothing like that woman. She wouldn't call her mom. She was like, that woman. And in my brain, I'm going, boom. I have red sirens going off going, okay, this person is not healthy. And so I got some other stuff happen, and I got to a point where I had to sit there and really consider, like, if I didn't share blood with this person, would I want anything to do with her? And it was a tough moment because all I ever wanted all of my life was for me to have a family. Like I didn't no brothers, no sisters. My mom and I were more like partners rather than, there was no physical love or affection. I don't know how I turned out half as decent as I did. But I got to the point of like, if I didn't share blood with that person, would I want anything to do with her? And the answer didn't even take a millisecond for me. I'm like, fuck no. And I'm sad for that. But at the same time, am I going to allow that into my life? I tried to help her. I tried to, and she was just like, nope, she was planted in her victim status. And my mom said before she passed, she goes, your sister's going to do me one better. And God is my witness, because I know you believe in God and have a faith in that. Ultimately in 2006, I think it was about a year, I wished her well. And I said, you know what, Maria, it's been fantastic reuniting. I know it's all love. And I said, it's been fantastic reuniting with you. We're two completely, ultimately different people. And I think it's best for us just to go and continue living our own lives. I wish you nothing but happiness. She had a boyfriend at the point. And I said, I wish you nothing but the best, but I would really appreciate it if you don't contact me again. I mean, she was very disgusting, like very vile and hurtful and hateful towards me sometimes. And I just chose, I'm like, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to love myself. And I wished her all the best. I have not talked to her or seen her, but I do occasionally look at her Facebook profile. I'm 55, so she's 62 now. She lives in a skilled nursing facility. She rides around on a scooter. She lost her house. She lost her cats. She smokes. She has gone down the same road my mom has, and she's done it 10 years earlier. And so I share that story with people, and they're just like, oh my God, I hate my brother. So I share that for people to perhaps get some value out of this. So as much as you would like to share in the moments we have left, well, how is that process for you? Because I think people feel guilty if they don't honor their blood relations. And I don't know what it is.
First of all, this has become a very common thing in our culture.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems to be this particular generation of kid where, if you don't toe the line or whatever, they just cut people off right and left. They don't know anything about forgiveness. They don't know anything about mercy. They don't know a lot about gratitude.
Which generation? Our generation, like Generation
No,
X?
no. My kids' generation.
Okay.
Millennials. They're in their they're in their 40s now. If you took both of my girls and took them in separate rooms and interviewed them, you would never believe that they were brought up in the same house by the same woman. She reported being victimized. I called in children and youth. There was an investigation. The charge could not be substantiated. But that continued to be an overriding issue. She ended up going to special schools and living in a group home because she was violent in my home. And social worker came in and told me if I didn't get her placed, that they were going to take my youngest. And, my youngest hadn't done a darn thing. I couldn't, in all consciousness, let that happen. And look, we don't raise babies, we raise adults. Yeah. I went through 7 therapists with this kid. I went through group homes, special schools. I did everything that could possibly be done. I apologized for everything that happened, everything that didn't happen, everything she thought that happened. And I continually invited her to leave that in the past and move forward with me. She was unwilling or unable to do that.
Sounds like my sister.
And, she's a really successful person. She has a master's in educational psychology from Harvard. She has a counseling certificate from USC. If hating me was part of the impetus that made her a successful person, I don't love it, but I do not hate it.
Right. Wow.
And you cannot force somebody to be in relation with you.
No.
So at this point in my life, and even when it first happened, I had a choice. Was I going to move forward with my other kid and just be the best parent child that I could do in that situation. And she is also a super successful person. She is a nurse. She's been a nurse for a lot of years. I have seen her in actions on medical emergencies on airplanes. I'll tell you a couple of super proud mom moments for me.
Right.
She's really good at helping me, manage health issues. And with my mother, when my mother was alive, she was a trusted confidant that I could get good medical information from. At the end of the day, you want your kids to be happy.
Yeah.
And, this is what she's always wanted to do. She's married. She's got 2 little boys who will never even hear my name. And you know what? I'm okay. She's happy. She's living what she believes to be the best road for her. And I wish her well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have zero doubt that that's going to ripple into so many people's lives who are listening to this and find value of that. And from this conversation, we've been talking for 50 minutes already. Where can people get a hold of you? I'm going to put your email up here. So if they want to reach out to you because you are a coach and you can help them go through that. For people who are listening, can you read that out? So make sure that people get that correctly.
It's Terry, Terry Lambertson, Lambertson @AOL.com.
Awesome. And talk about your Facebook group and also your YouTube channel as well.
All right. I have a women's ministry on Facebook. By the end of this month, we'll be 1,500 women strong. We talk about all the issues that women go through. It's a Christian women's group. It's called Jesus Loves Hippie Chicks. You can search us on Facebook. And also, I invite you to just find me in Facebook Messenger. I'm going to give everybody who wants to speak to me a free 30-minute call. I'm one of the really weird coaches out there who works on a sliding scale. So if coaching is something that you've always been interested in but never felt like you could afford, I am your person.
Terry Lambertson, thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming in here and being so vulnerable and so authentic and so strong and sharing your convictions and sharing your experiences, because that's what at the end of the day, when we do that, when we show those vulnerabilities, when we show those challenges in our life, we find that we are more the same than we are different. And that ultimately we all want the same things in lives. And if we're able to let go and process some of the stuff that's holding us back, the opportunities for us to thrive and to find love and to find happiness and to find professional success and find financial success and find spiritual freedom is pretty exponential. I've seen people go from the darkest of lows to the highest of highs. I've seen people from the highest of highs go to the darkest of lows. I've coached rock stars and actors and actresses. And you think that, if you just have the money and the fame, then everything else will come. I've seen people give it all up and sit there and realize that they were doing that all for naught. And that when we find that true inner happiness within ourselves, it's pretty incredible what we can find for ourselves. So again, I encourage you guys to reach out to Terry Lambertson at AOL.com. I'll make sure that her YouTube and her Facebook group are in the show notes. So as you're listening to this, perhaps driving or whatever, whenever you pull over, you can go into the show notes. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, we're on iHeart, Amazon, wherever you get podcasts. If you guys are listening to this, you can go to rawandunscripted.com, rawandunscripted.com. You'll find all the links to go to the podcast, and you can find the episodes there. Connect with Terry and take her up on her offer, because much like Terry, I was mentored by a gentleman who I have a tattoo on my arm that says, "You're only limited by the parameters of your own mind." That guy told it to me at 17 years old when I thought I was going to live the rest of my life working 7 jobs and eating ketchup sandwiches. And because of that individual seeing in me and giving me opportunities to think differently about my life, I've achieved amazing success in my life, and it continues to grow and prosper. So you have to have the right people in your life. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to this, Terry, I'm going to place you backstage. I'm going to say a few more words, but don't go anywhere so I can still talk with you.
All right.
Thank you. And there we have it, guys. So again, what I said at the beginning of this episode, I said that you can listen to this and take notes. So perhaps I think the biggest thing that we spoke about in this conversation is the ability to see ourselves not as victims, but as warriors, that if we can look back on our life and see all the difficult and challenging and fucked up situations we've been through, that has all been happening for us. And as hard as it might be for you to process right now, I want you to consider this. Just stop with the negative self-talk and stop with the excuses. I'm this way because of my mom or blah, 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 blah. And sit there and think, perhaps, what would life be like if I used this, if I used all these experiences as fuel to ignite a fire within myself, to become a different person, to seek more to understand what perhaps those people were going through, and look at it from an opportunity for myself to say, you know what, these are lessons in my life. And rather than running away from them and running to my short-term gratifications to ignore the situations that I have going on, perhaps consider the possibilities of what life can look like on the other side of this pain. Look at the possibilities and the opportunities to be like Terry, right? To take those experiences and say, you know what? I want to see myself in a year. I want to see myself in 3 years. And yes, that may seem like a long time, but guess what, guys? If you're fortunate and you get to experience those years, trust me, I'm 55 now. The years go by pretty fast. So when you make that investment in yourself and you sit there and forward think about yourself, like in 3 years, I could be actually coaching people. I could be a psychologist. I could be working in group, whatever it is for you. And you could take your pain into your purpose. I think that's what I titled the show. Didn't I title the show something like that? Where is it? Where's the title? Hang on a second. From pain to purpose. It's exactly what I titled the show. So you can sit there and take your pain and make it your purpose. And in 3 years from now, and even most likely shorter, depending on who you're working with, you can find meaning. You can find what Terry talked about before, the legacy. Who do you want to be remembered for? Why do you want to be remembered? Do you want to be remembered for being somebody who was a self-loathing pity party? Or do you want to be remembered for somebody who went through a bunch of shit in their lives and got straight and got right and started taking and using those opportunities for strength and leverage, right? I wrote my eulogy back in 2008. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life because since then, 2008, and when I wrote my eulogy, the crux of it is Christopher Rausch will have fought for what's right and what's fair. He will have risked which that mattered, and he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. Am I doing that right now? Can I go to bed tonight feeling proud of the fact that I had this amazing conversation with Terry and that I know it's going to impact thousands of lives? If tomorrow is my last day, if tonight's my last breath, and this is the last thing I ever do, I will feel immensely proud that I continue to live on purpose with my legacy. Can you say the same thing? Can you say the same thing? Today is the day that it can all change. Right now is the moment you can sit there and decide, I'm excited about the person I'm becoming because this is no longer serving me my greatest interest. And you can sit down and write your eulogy. That's what I do with all my coaching clients. So there you have it. There's another episode of the Raw and Unscripted show. Again, go to rawandunscripted.com. Go to my YouTube channel. I'm going to put this link up here, youtube.com/the Christopher Rausch, RAUSCH. If you guys forget all of that shit, go to noexcusescoach.com because I continually put lots of new content on YouTube. They can be shorts, they can be the videos, they can be all sorts of things. I nearly have 1,000 videos on there, all for you. All for you to take action. So if you can't afford having a coach, if you can't afford anything in your life, you can go there and every single day take one specific, I can never say that word right, specific action, an intentional action, and become the person you're meant to be. All right. We're going to be back here next week, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another guest, and we're going to rock your world. So in the meantime, go out there, live, love, and laugh, and we'll see you here again on the Raw and Unscripted show. I love you guys. Be the best version of yourself you could be. Cheers.